The summer camp Pinewood looked like a cozy place. At least that's how it seemed when I stepped off the bus with the other kids. I was 12 and my parents decided that a month of fresh air would do me good. Back then, I didn't know that not everyone would make it back home. The camp session started as expected. Games, swimming in the lake, evening gatherings around the fire. The counselors were kind, but I noticed a certain wariness in their eyes. Something lingered in the air, something elusive, something that made the night in the forest darker than it should have been. The first night passed peacefully, but by the second, anxiety settled in. First, Jimmy from the neighboring cabin went missing. They said he had run away home. Then Emily disappeared with the same explanation. But I knew they wouldn't have just left. Their things were still there. Who would run off into the dark woods barefoot? One night I heard a rustling outside my window. Peeking through the curtain, I saw a figure, a tall silhouette, its face hidden in darkness. It stood motionless, staring in my direction. I held my breath, unable to move. Then the silhouette vanished into the night. The next morning we learned that another child was missing. The counselors assured us everything was under control, but we saw how they whispered among themselves, how the number of night patrols increased. Fear clung to us like a second skin. We couldn't sleep, only listening to the rustling beyond the walls. The night Lisa disappeared, I heard her scream. It wasn't just a frightened cry. It was a scream of pure despair, one that sticks in your throat and tears it apart from within. I jumped out of bed and looked out the window. There, in the moonlight, I saw him. A man with a featureless face, no eyes, no lips. Just smooth skin where his features should have been. He was holding Lisa's hand and she twisted, struggling to break free. And then they were gone, as if they had evaporated into the air. I knew no one would believe me, so I kept silent. But the next morning I found something strange outside my cabin door. A small baby tooth carefully placed on a piece of paper, and on the paper, one word scrawled in jagged handwriting: next. I tried to tell the counselors, but they just exchanged glances and told me I was imagining things. Just nerves, said the head counselor, squeezing my shoulders. But I saw his eyes. He knew. They all knew. The next night I didn't sleep. I waited for him to come for me. And he did. The door to my cabin creaked open. I held my breath, pretending to sleep. Heavy, creaking footsteps. I could feel his breath next to me. He leaned closer and I heard a quiet, sticky whisper. You. I jumped up, bolted from my bed and ran, stumbling toward the exit. The camp was empty. No one. No kids, no counselors. Only darkness. Only him following me. I sprinted to the gate, but it was locked, so I did the only thing I could. I ran into the forest. I ran until my legs could no longer carry me. Then I heard him. Footsteps. He was close. I turned and saw that face, smooth as a mannequin's. No eyes. But I knew he was staring straight at me. I squeezed my eyes shut and screamed. And when I opened them, it was morning. I was lying by the road. A ranger found me. No one believed me. The camp said I had suffered a nervous breakdown and sent me home. Not long after, Camp Pinewood was shut down. Too many disappearances. But I know the truth. I know he's still there. Waiting for next summer. For the next children. For the next.
Mom is watching me. I always knew something was wrong with my mom. For as long as I can remember, she was strange, sometimes too affectionate, sometimes cold as ice. Her mood shifted like the weather one morning. She would stroke my hair and call me her golden boy, and by evening, she'd look at me as if I were her enemy. Sometimes, I heard her talking to herself in the dark, whispering something unintelligible. Sometimes, I felt like there was someone else in the room with us, someone invisible, someone only she could see. But I never thought she would want to kill me. The first signs had all started in November when the house began to feel different. That day, I came home from school and found my mom sitting at the kitchen table. She didn't notice me at first. In front of her was a dirty glass with the remains of something black, maybe coffee, and a half-eaten plate of cold food. But she wasn't eating. She was just sitting there, staring into space. Mom, she slowly turned her head. What? Are you okay? Her eyes looked strange. Too dark, as if something inside them had burned out. Of course, she said. Just tired, but I knew it was a lie. That night, I woke up to a strange sound. A rustling noise, soft as breathing. Opening my eyes, I saw her standing in the doorway of my room. She wasn't moving, just watching me. Mom, I whispered. She didn't answer. I tried to see her expression, but it was lost in the shadows. My heart pounded. What are you doing? She stayed silent. I quickly turned on my bedside lamp, and in that instant, she slipped away into the darkness, as if she had never been there. The next morning, she acted normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. You are not you. Over the next few days, she got even stranger. She didn't eat. I never saw her drink water, cook, or open the fridge. Yet the plates were dirty, and trash appeared in the bin. Sometimes, I heard her, speaking but not to me. One night, I woke up again, this time to the sound of footsteps. Soft, almost silent, but I knew it was her. I barely opened my eyes. Mom was sitting on the floor next to my bed. I clenched my fists. Mom, she didn't move. Mom, what are you doing? Watching what? She slowly tilted her head. You, she said it quietly, almost lovingly. Why, she smiled faintly. You are not you. I didn't know what to say. Go to sleep, she added. I forced myself to close my eyes. Whispers in the walls every day. Mom got worse. She barely spoke to me. Her eyes were darker than before. She could sit for hours in a chair, rocking back and forth, whispering to herself. One night, I woke up to a terrifying sound. It was coming from the walls. Whispering, I pressed my ear against the wall and heard Mom. He is not mine, he is not mine, he is not mine. She repeated it over and over. This is your fault. The next day, I decided to confront her. Mom, what is wrong with you? She was staring out the window. It asks you, she said quietly. What? She turned. Her face was pale, her skin tight, and her eyes were full of something dark. You are not my son. I clenched my fists. What are you talking about? She suddenly smiled. You think I don't know? I hear you whisper at night. I see how you look at me when you think I am not watching. You are not my son. I took a step back. Mom, you were scaring me. She slowly stood up. You took his place. Whose place? She tilted her head. My real son asked. I froze. He died, and you stayed. She stepped forward. You weren't supposed to stay. That ass when I knew I had to run. Mom, please. That night, I locked my bedroom door, but it didn't help. I woke up to the sound of the door slowly creaking open. Mom stood in the doorway. She was holding a knife. Mom, my voice shook. She smiled. Finally, I jumped out of bed. Mom, it won't hurt. She took a step closer. I ran to the window. You can run, she screamed. I threw it open and jumped. I remember hitting the ground, running barefoot through the snow, hearing her screaming behind me. I reached my neighbor's house, pounding on the door until they let me in. The end. They took Mom away. The doctors said she had paranoia, schizophrenia, something else. But I knew the truth. I knew that Mom wasn't crazy. She saw something I couldn't see. And now, at night, I hear someone whispering to me from the dark. You are not you.